It took me 2 whole months to get my first 3 clients for my AI agency. But after I did what I'm about to share with you today, it took me only 13 days to get the next 3. Today, I'll talk about the 3 acquisition channels that I set up for my agency to get me my results so you can go and do the same for yours. And these channels come from what I've identified as direct, indirect, and passive approaches to getting clients, which I'll get into right now. Alright, so jumping onto the Figma board here, I've set up a few things that I'm going to walk you through regarding what we did and how we got our clients. So first one is direct outreach. So you can call this cold outreach or whatever, but it's how I identify like the direct approach of literally you make your solicitation very apparent and like you show them that you know that you can help them. And we did that through cold calling. Probably the most direct form of reaching out to people to try to sell your services. In the past, we've done cold calling and cold email, but in terms of the results that I'm sharing with you today over the past 13 days or so, the one came from cold calling. Now, in terms of the results that we've seen just in general of the direct outreach, it is obviously a very quick and way of getting clients and gets you those short-term results. And I'm going to delve into why I say short term later on. Since it's very direct, implement the volume based aspect of it. Eventually, you will get clients, which is why I labeled it as very quick. And there's no like relationship building prior to that or any other like moving parts. It's just you go out there, try to sell your services, which makes it very quick. And so I learned a lot of valuable lessons from this. The most important one being that it is a volume game. So if you look at like, so Hormozy talks about leverage, right? This is directly correlated with however much you do. So let's say that this is maybe your total numbers of outreach, the blue, and then the yellow is how much you actually get. We are looking at a direct correlation here, a linear path that reflects your results based on how much you do. Now, the key thing that I want to touch on here, yes, of course, you may have skill that determines the proportion of those people that actually respond. But at the end of the day, the consistency of that proportion, that percentage, is going to come from how much volume you put in, you know? And in terms of leverage, this is the lowest form of leverage, although it is the quickest in terms of strategy and playing long-term games. This should be a very short-term goal in terms of the attention that you spend into it when you're starting off, you know? So that's probably just straight off the bat, one of the biggest lessons overall that I've learned. The alternate version, given the nature of the volume-based game, is cold email because you can automate that approach as well. And if you are going to go ahead and scale that, cold email, I think, is the way to go. And that's exactly what we're doing for our agency. So we've seen that, okay, if we send more emails, if we do more calls, we'll get more results. If we can automate that scale approach without sacrificing the quality, you see like some of my past videos, literally my last video was about personalizing emails so that you increase your reply rate. This is kind of our strategy right now, and this is how we're seeing some of the results. Hopefully leading up to closing some clients in the next few days as well that are coming from these campaigns. But essentially the idea is the same, right? It's very much dictated by how much you do. So it's this idea of a very linear path. Anyway, moving on. So the next one that I want to touch on is the indirect path, which for us, like the results came straight from LinkedIn content. And you can think of the indirect as providing value or some sort of generating content that isn't directly correlated to selling your services. And obviously we have the YouTube channel for that stuff, which is generating leads. But of the 13 days, the thing that generated us the client was a LinkedIn content as well, which I don't actually do myself. That's on my business partner's end, which includes, a whole like LinkedIn outreach strategy and all of that stuff. But it was the bare LinkedIn content that actually got us one of those clients. Now, in terms of the results, obviously in absolute value, LinkedIn has generated like much less results compared to a cold outreach strategy. And that is because everything that cold outreach is, the direct form of getting clients, the indirect content side of things isn't. So that means, it's a very slower path to results and a much longer term play. So when I talk about strategy, you have to consider that you want people to be coming to you eventually in order for them to convert into clients. So again, if we bring up the scale once again, and so blue being how much you do and yellow being how much you get, It is actually more of like this sort of graph. So sort of an exponential graph, and obviously not a straight line up, just like that, but you get the idea that it is very much based on time and consistency. And that's why, so I put in this example here, this analogy to investing, because over time it compounds. And when you get people coming to you, you get them coming later on down the track rather than immediately, as Code Outreach shows. So having this idea, having something that compounds over time, really falls into the things that I've learned as well, that, it's something that you put away just like investing, and in the long term, it, really kind of just blows up and becomes your main sort of acquisition channel. We are starting to see some results of that on LinkedIn, which is good. So given that, these are the learnings that we have acquired over that time. So value has got to come first, because it is a much more indirect approach. It's like if you want people to come to you, you have to show them why first, and the value, the information, the content in terms of what we do. It's giving out the automations, the step-by-step processes, the tutorials to show value, show that you give them the benefits of the work that you do for free. Of course, that's a key point there. You do it for free, and if they end up considering someone in the future to create these automations, they might as well go with you. That's the idea. So value first, and over time, going back to this analogy here, it becomes a higher leverage play. Because if you think about it, if you're big enough that you can just make one piece of content and many hundreds of people can see it after you making it once, that becomes a much higher leverage thing to do. As opposed to you before, how we were taking this and then everything was directly correlated with how many hours we put in, That's a horrible graph, but anyway. It's not a volume-based game. This is a higher leverage strategical play. And one more thing that I learned, so from off the back of implementing these principles and playing the long game and making sure to give them value first, when you actually go to meet with the client, the relationship is actually different. You've already proven yourself to some extent that you can create value, and as opposed to it being a stranger on the internet that you're reaching out to asking if they would like to buy your thing, this prospect from content has already seen the value that you provide, and so it is much, much easier to actually work with them in that sense, or even convert them as a client. So that is probably the biggest reason that content is key to everything they do long term. As an alternate to content, there isn't much like it, honestly. Making content potentially for free, or ultimately for free, and people seeing it many times, that is like a category of one sort of thing. But if you are going to take the aspect of value and getting people to come to you, I would compare it to something like lead magnet paid ads. But then again, it's like paid ads. It gives you that immediate sense as well, rather than the long-term play, which involves like the overhead, the investment that you make money-wise into the paid ads rather than your time. Obviously, it depends to your specific situation, but in terms of a longer play, the paid ads doesn't really have that factor put into it, because you're investing money to cut through that time gap that you would spend making content. But the main idea that I want to give to you here is having that long-term play, which can lead to all of these great things here. Finally, the last thing that we've heavily implemented in our agency is going with this passive approach of using referrals, so leveraging the hard work that you've already done for a client. So this is when you've already closed someone and you strategically ask them at a very specific point if there is anyone else that they know that is struggling with the same problem that you helped this particular client solve. And so this is a very, very strategic play, and there's a very specific component to it in terms of how you ask and when you ask that person as well. So in terms of our experience doing this, we have worked with 7 clients, and each of them we have tried this technique and has been highly successful, because in terms of results, we have seen that it is immediate in terms of you becoming a very warm connection in relation to that new prospect or potential customer. And it's so successful that it is actually our main source of business. And so, in it being our main source of business, there is very key things that we've learned doing this. Firstly, is that so the reward aspect of it is that the trust is built very quickly with this new party, because we have just been transferred from a cold person to being very well known and connected with the client that that we've generated value for in the middle. Because it's necessarily us telling the new prospect about the value that we've created. It's actually someone that they know, that they already trust in advance. It just speeds everything up in terms of how you come to work with them, how willing they are to work with you, and it's a very successful way to increase your business as well. And the best thing of it is that they are willing to refer to others as well. So often, if someone is referred, it is very likely that they offer your services to other people that they know as well, just because you have proven more than once to that person, so that person has known of your value more than once from being referred to them in the first place, and then the second time once you've actually worked with them and actually reinforced their decision on working with you. So then if that's the case for them, then they think, why not actually transfer that to the network that they have with other people. But there is a catch to it. You have to ask the right people in order to do this, especially when you are a B2B service like an AI agency. And so in the beginning, like within these 7 clients as well, we worked with a lot of lower end, less rich clients. And this is obviously very coherent with your niche as well, and just how niched in they are. And what I mean by that is the less money that they make, the more competitive and the more stingy that they come to get with in relation to other people in the same category as them. And so what often was a case that we found was that we'd ask them for anyone else that they knew that was struggling with the same pain. And, in B2B competitiveness, they just said, yes, I do know people, but I don't want anyone else to know about this thing. I would just want this for my own advantage. And what we've come to find out is that the higher up we've gone in terms of revenue, in terms of the business size, and the more niched in they are, so the more specified and the higher revenue these people were, the more they didn't bother about referring us to other businesses. So we worked specifically with a business coaching company who obviously have access to other people of different niches. So that being the case, them being a B2B business themselves, they felt kind of obliged even to refer us to some of their clients and people that they know. So referrals can actually be a very powerful way for you to generate business. Uh, as we saw from these two kind of benefits from it. But there is a strategic point of view that you have to ask the right people in terms of niche and in terms of how big they are as a business as a whole. And the other strategic point that I want to touch on here that we've learned is the factor of reciprocation. And just as Cialdini says, there is a moment where when you give value, when you deliver value, people are more than likely to deliver something back to you. And this goes beyond the money that they paid you to fulfill the services. So when they are in that point of reciprocation, when you deliver the value to them, they feel more than obliged to refer business back to you as a result of the hard work that you've done for them. And so reciprocation is a sort of something that we're sticking to more and more, which kind of aligns with the ask and the timing of that ask for it being when you actually deliver value to them in the first place. And then alternate option for referrals in general that we might even look into in the future as well is leveraging partnerships with the businesses that you've already helped. So the idea and the strategy here is the same in terms of reciprocation. It's just that the ask this time is to leverage their services in order to influence perhaps their clients or some other people that they know through that person alone. So you compare that to referrals, it means that you bounce from working specifically with one client to another client as a whole. So it's a different project, and the only connector between is that one client knows your new prospect. But in terms of partnerships, it's something that you can leverage your current client services to bring more business to yourself. So that can be their own clients themselves. So if you've just listened to me yap this whole time and you kind of feel, overwhelmed by what you do in the next few steps of your journey, I would advise you to do this. You just start with one thing and one thing only, and then you just focus on that. Now, I've talked about long-term, short-term things to get, clients. If you don't have a client at all, you obviously can't use referrals. But what you can do is focus on one particular outreach strategy or a one particular content strategy. Maybe if you're in a financial situation where you need clients immediately, you might be able to leverage cold emails, cold calling, and get them quicker so that you can then leverage referrals. But obviously, if you're a younger person, like me, and you're fine with, just not getting clients for a little while, and maybe you don't have that many like bills to pay, then working off of content and just focusing on that long-term game is probably the best thing and for you. But essentially, what you're going to try to do is focus on that one thing. You're going to see where it takes you, and then from there, you can leverage these other methods as well. That's all for the video. By now, my hope is that you have an idea of the channels you need to set up to get clients directly, indirectly, and passively for your agency. Remember that strategy is everything. So start with the method that suits you best, know what results to expect, and don't stop until you get them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.